video introduction will be recorded as stream and a podcast. Video recordings will only capture the speaker, instructor, and students will not be visible. Your voice, however, may be captured if you ask a question. If you do not wish your voice to be captured, please speak to me so we can determine an alternative means for the and all feel free to write down a question and pass it to the staff member who can read it for you. So next time I'm going to record it so you can play. We don't have to read it all the time. This semester we'll have 3 workshops. The first workshop is today on how to prepare an job application package, which including CV and letter, and also research statement and teaching statement. Before I introduce the 2 of the presenters, I also want to talk about next workshop will be about TA experience and course design. I combined the 2 ideas coming from students. Just briefly, Nick last time had a summarization of the minutes of the student meeting. So based on that one, I looked at all the students' suggestions about workshop. And what I did is copy-paste that list to the faculty member. I also asked the students about priority, based on your priority, and then also the volunteers from faculty as well. That's what we decided. So next one will be TA experience and course design, which Nadine and Dao, he's a new faculty member, will have the presentation. The third one is a little bit unusual because there are a couple of students interested in non-faculty positions. So I invited Barbara Jones from ALA and also Sandra Tara from IMLS. You know, that's the Institute of Library and the Museum. When I applied for my grant, I know her. So she is a senior specialist for the grant, and she has also had a doctoral degree. And the third one is Suya Ray. She's my friend. But when she was graduating, she did not find a job. So she went to Excite. Do you still remember that search engine, Excite? She went there as a human specialist. And then when Excite broke, do you remember they went to bankruptcy at the time? So she came back to academic, and then she found a job in Michigan University. And the reason they hired her because of her industry experience. So you can always come back. So that's another thing. That will be in April. So we'll have exciting workshops along the way too. Okay, now without delay, let me introduce the 2 of the big presenters today. You know Professor Zimmer, and he's probably one of the faculty who present the most. The first one you started, do you remember how to prepare a dissertation proposal, right? You and Jessica, is that right? Yeah. And then last time, for 1 year ago, we also did a grant, which Jerome and Nick did together. And then you suddenly have some interesting thing to introduce, so you also joined for that one.
Yeah, I kind of.
Right. And now the third one, he volunteered, so thank you so much for doing all this work. And then Professor Worker, I invited him. I think it would be interesting, you know, while Professor Zimmer will try to talk about how to prepare for the package, including all those letters, statement. But it's also good for another perspective is how the search committee assess those criteria and look at those candidates, decide who are going to be chosen, not by joining a lottery. It's actually looking at their CV, right? So
there is an element of chance. It's not completely.
But that's something. Are you going to talk about the secret today? You know, how do you do it?
The secret, yeah.
The secret he's going to share with you, the flaws, right? And he will not share it with anybody else. How you can be selected. So I think that would be great.
You're showing the matrix. We have a matrix.
Yeah, with all the detailed stuff, right? So when you leave, you can leave $5 here. You know.
And the more you leave, the better your chances later.
To increase the chance, then we can give you a private listen.
Right? Yeah, there you go.
Including wear red when you go to the interview.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, without delay. So go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually have some handouts that I'll distribute, and I wanted to sort of preface this with. It's been a while since I applied for a job, and that's a good thing. But it's the kind of thing that I've been on a lot of our search committees, so I keep getting exposed to
I forgot to mention that. Sorry.
applications coming in. No, that's fine. And I had good advice and good guidance when I went out, and I think in my experience was unique too, because I was coming from a program that was largely in communication studies and doing a little bit different kind of work, and I was applying to all different kinds of schools like iSchools. So a lot of what I had to do in my package materials was this active translation on how to make my work sound like it fits in different kinds of environments. And so that's a lot of what I talk about. It's also why a lot of my stuff is long, and I ended up going on the long sides. I felt like I had to over-explain why I'm applying to this particular program. And that's something to keep in mind in terms of whether or not you need to use the length that I did or not. And there's also a lot of really good resources online. This is actually a resource I used when I was writing my stuff, so I'll send this around and you can find this online from the University of Washington. And many universities, I don't know if we have it, but within like their career centers, they have placement help for academic careers as well. So this is a bunch of tips. Actually, last time I was writing up my own tips, or mostly my pet peeves regarding applications. And it was nice because it actually kind of fit mostly what they were describing more officially in this kind of document. But that document has a little bit of guidance on what a cover letter should look like, a couple of samples, what a CV should look like, a research statement if you haven't seen those kind of things before. I'm not planning to walk through that document. I mean, we can, but it's a good resource, and you can just Google that center. They have other samples and things on there. So Washington's was good. Cornell has a good collection of things. Michigan, and a few others. So feel free to.
Michael, can I jump in just one thing?
No.
First, for those of you who are not come to the time to apply for a job, I think it's always a good idea to start early. Never too early to start, because then you can think about what should I do? Should I do more research? Should I publish more papers? Should I actually prepare courses? So that's why I want to all those you, even you just started, it's a good idea to start to think about that too.
No, that's fine. And it's good to be looking at the job postings that come around, even if it's still a couple years away for you.
Yeah.
To get a sense.
Because it's too late if you do it.
No, right. Yeah. And you need to get a sense, and I'll talk about this more in the kind of language that they use in terms of what they're looking for. And that helps you shape yourself into that. You have to be very kind of morph-like.
Malleable.
That works. in how you do this at certain times. So the next things I'm going to hand out is I asked Laura to pull the CV that I submitted when I applied here, so you can at least see what.
At least they keep a file.
I couldn't find it. I was on the market twice. So I was on the market when I was just finishing, had some interviews. Took a postdoc instead, and then went on the market again. So actually, I had the first version of my CV when I hadn't yet completed yet, but this is the version I took off of my hard drive for some reason. So we'll walk through that in a minute, and then this is the material that I prepared. And I'm not saying this is like some kind of gold standard, but it's just how I approached letters. There's two versions of a research statement in there. I had a long version and a short version. The short version isn't really short; it's just shorter than the long one. And then a teaching statement. And you'll notice right away when you start looking at jobs and postings, they're going to ask for a variety of different things. Some aren't going to care about a teaching statement. Some will. Some won't even ask for a research statement. And that's why my letter is 2 full pages. So for places that didn't ask for a research statement, I incorporated that into my letter. I guess you guys can copy this. Well, let's make sure
they have
the students get it first.
Does that everyone has that one?
And the extras just pass them forward. And then the last thing I'm handing out is my list of like pet peeves and just pro tips, which is the main thing I want to kind of walk through and then just compare back to the document. A lot of this were tactics that I picked up when I was in the real world, applying for real jobs and working in business and hiring staff and getting applications from other people. And the one piece of advice that I always tell people is that, like, when you send out an application, that is the only piece of information that person's going to have about you. You can't assume that they know about something that was in the news, or that they're going to happen to find your website, or that they are going to go and Google you or do something else. This is it, and you got to, and especially like the first couple pages of this, because I'll be a teaching statement. I've never read a teaching statement every time I'm on a search committee, so that is recorded. But it's like But so the other thing is to make you try to incorporate things into the letter and stuff too, because most they're going to read the letter, they're going to look at the CV, and it depends on whether or not I have 20 files on my desk or 100 on how much more detail I'm going to get into, and that's the unfortunate reality sometimes. Some places, especially when you have online submission, which is more common, they might even do some automated filtering, that if the word, a certain word doesn't show up, it goes into, I only look at this pile if I have to. That's what businesses do when you apply through Amazon or what's it called, Monster, and those kind of things. But the first thing I talk about in this little cheat sheet of mine is reading the postings, and you do need to just be aware of job postings and how they're structured, and you learn more about this when you actually get on a faculty and you see how jobs get created and lines get created. There's often going to be a laundry list of things that they look for, and that the list, you'll never know if that list is ordered purposefully or not. Sometimes they'll be very precise. We want someone that does digital libraries and also can teach in these in these areas. So they're really looking for a digital libraries person. They might entertain somebody else, but that's the core thing that they're looking for. Other times there just might be 8 subject areas listed there, and you're just got to find the one that fits you. And they might not be using language that describes exactly you, but you got to find a way to make yourself fit in there. So there's sometimes politics or things you have to read between the lines in terms of these how the job postings are written. And unless you happen to know somebody there, you would never probably be able to figure out what kind of person are you really looking for, and they probably shouldn't tell you anyway based on just proper procedure of these things. But pay attention to those languages, because you're also going to use some of the same wording in your letter when you describe how I'm a good fit. I like to repeat what they're saying. Like I'm applying for, you're looking for this, and I can do that. You don't want to make up things that you can't do, but you do need to again translate your skills. So if they're looking for someone that does emerging technologies, like okay, yeah, I can do emerging technology. So that's how I rewrite the first paragraph of my letter to say I study emerging technologies such as social media and Web 2.0 and stuff like that. Or if they're looking for digital media, okay, now we're going to say digital media this time. It's like you do that kind of a little bit of customization, so they see those keywords, because there's some people that will read it and just look for those words and look to see how things fit. So do that. Make sure you submit what they ask for. Don't submit less, and it's probably not worth submitting more, because again, a lot of these places have 100 files at a time that they have to work through. But be sure that if they ask for 3 references, give them 3 references, and if they ask for a brief teaching statement, give them a brief teaching statement, not a 4-page teaching statement. It's that kind of thing, because you value their time and do that. Make sure if you use a form letter that you change the name of the department and university every place it appears in that letter. I've taken files and just gone like this, because when they write Marquette University on the top, I'm not reading any further. And it sounds silly, but it happens. Because you're busy, you're frantic, especially if you mention the place a couple times, which I think you should, to personalize the letter. I mean, we know how to do mail merge and that kind of stuff. But please make sure you do that, you spell people's names correctly, and those kind of things.
It's disconcerting, though, to see someone say, I believe that my qualifications are a perfect match for University of Virginia.
Yeah.
Well, good for you.
Yeah. And it happens, and it's like already attention to detail, gone. It's like this is your chance. So there's that. So let's talk about any questions just right off the bat there. I mean, I hope we don't have to talk about where to find job postings and those kind of things.
One incidental
The interweb. Yeah.
This is a pet peeve, but it's a lot of people's pet peeves, and that's you should proofread your application materials, because typos do find their way in. And read it backwards if you need to. That's one way of proofreading. But this came up the other day. I'm on the search committee for the dean, for the new dean. You are too, and there were a couple of applications with typos. So this is for a dean position. Come on, try a little harder.
That's the secretary's fault. That's not dean's fault. Secretary didn't.
You never know.
They can blame the secretary.
But there are people that will put that in the no stack just for that fact. It's like if you don't have that, if you don't care enough about the job, So that's a good point. Make sure you do that. The way I approach cover letters, and mine is long. It's a full 2 pages. And again, this was, I think, me trying to compensate for the fact that I might look a little different to some people. But I mentioned a few things right in my notes here. And a lot of this is just my opinion. I don't like big fancy design. You're not applying for a design gig. So we don't need the custom font and pixelated version of you and swirls and things like that. And maybe I'm old-fashioned that way. I never used the letterhead where I was. I know some people do. I don't know if that matters ever. I never did, but that's just.
I wouldn't. But some people.
We see it often. I'd say don't do it.
Unless you're an employee. Well, even if you're an employee.
Yeah.
It's not official business that you're applying for a job.
That's the other thing. You're using university resources to go elsewhere. So I would just do a generic thing like you see here. I always try to address it to the name of the person or to the members of the search committee. I just don't like dear sir or madam. It just seems wishy-washy. And I recognize what you're trying to attempt, but you could be more precise. And then I'm always a pet peeve on the first line of statements. I hate it when somebody writes, I wish to apply to this position. Because I literally am like, great, let me know when you actually decide to do it. It's nice that you wish to do this. Let's declare something. And those of you where I read your stuff, I'm always telling you, don't say you want to claim this. Claim it, and then tell me why that statement is true. So say, I am applying for, or I am writing, or please accept this letter as my application for. Be declarative, and you're not hoping you get the job. You want the job, and this is why. So just that's my first point there or I guess my third point. Don't start soft. Start strong. And I think that first paragraph is important. And I always try to approach it as like, I'm applying for your position at your school. You asked for this. My credentials meet that, and I look forward to to helping contribute to your success or to join your faculty or whatever it might be. I always like to make that first paragraph like you're hitting the deal. You're making the sell right away, and then the rest of the letter supports that claim. If it's a soft opening, I'm just kind of like, all right, why do I want to keep reading and hear about your life? So I try to be strong. You brag. You list what you've done, what you've accomplished, what you've been associated with. And that's one of the things that if you're not the kind of person that brags, you're going to have to start changing that in these letters. You do need to brag. You don't want to be a jerk about it, but if you worked on an NSF-funded project, you say here, my experience on an NSF project helped me do this and this and this. I mean, you don't list bullet points of like, here's all the things that are awesome about me, but you find ways to build it into just the discourse, just the way that you describe your skills. And you literally just drop those kind of things in, so they see those kind of keywords when they go through. Another thing that just the way I approach these kind of things, if you look at my letter, it's multiple paragraphs, but I have them broken down, and I start the paragraph with what it's about. My research does this. My dissertation did that. My dissertation also did that. My future research is going to do that, and complementing my research. I should have started with teaching more in that paragraph, but I try to make sure that even though it's like 6 big paragraphs, within a half a second, you know what each paragraph is going to be about, and there's a logic and those kind of things. That just helps guide the reader, because, like Tom will say, the review committee is just spending a night with a glass of wine going through a ton of these things, and so you don't want to make it hard for them to navigate your materials and figure out what you're trying to say. So I try to make it clear that way. If it is a program or a department that isn't quite obviously your field or your area, like you might be applying for a communication program or a computer science program that happens to have something in your area, it's probably helpful to recognize that, to somehow mention that, my experience in an iSchool helps prepare me for working with computer science faculty in this kind of way. Like if there's any kind of gap that someone thinks there might be uncertainty whether or not you fit, fill that for them. And do that. And I had to do a lot of that because I realized I wasn't the comm scholar when I started applying to comm programs. And that's why my first search didn't succeed. And we can have a drink and talk about that some other time. So that's another thing that I think is important to help fill any kind of a conceptual gap or any doubt that someone might have on why is this person applying here. We see a lot of those kind of things where you have an algorithm set up to forward your application to any job that has the word information in it, because you think that just works, and we get that all the time. It's not algorithms, but it's people that are just like, any job is remotely similar to mine I'm applying for, and you spend a lot of time going like, do they even look at our school? Do they even know what we do? We had a chemical engineer, I think in one of the last rounds, apply for a position. And it's like, how did you think this works? It's just, so avoid, that, but recognize there are going to be, where you're going to try to fit yourself into a peg, and make sure in your letter you do describe that. You should include something about your teaching. In your letter, it's good to mention if you've taught your own class, if you've TA'd, just a little paragraph to describe how that's helped you and what you're planning to do going forward. And that we'll talk about teaching more in a minute. And then I usually close again with a more declarative kind of statement, like, some say, I hope you like me, or those kind of things. Like, that's not, it's not a date. It's like, here's my stuff is included. I look forward to talking to you. Feel free to contact me. I hope I how to do those kind of things. And I guess I just say thank you for consideration. I look forward to hearing from you. It's like, not like I hope this all works out, or I hope I get to walk across the mall at Ohio State with you someday. It's like, we don't need those kind of things. If you happen, I've seen that though. If you happen to know the person or the committee, ignore that. They're a chair of a search committee. You address them professionally. You don't mention, I hope your wife's doing well, or I hope your kids are fine. None of that. And here you don't include cookies or any of that kind of stuff. So. It's common that letters are more than one page. It's probably typical that they're more than one. Sometimes you get letters that are just like, I'm applying, my stuff's inside, and that's it. And to me, that's not enough. You need to use this opportunity to share a little bit more. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on letters.
Well,
in general.
This overlaps with some of what I was planning to say later. I'll get more to the other side of the evaluation, but there was a relatively recent letter that came through. Shauna, do you mind if I mention your letter?
Okay, if it's good.
It's good. Well, you're here, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's good because you're looking for a job.
Yeah.
Well, don't reuse that letter anytime soon. We hope you stay, but there was a job announcement over the summer, and Shauna applied for. The beauty of her letter was that it addressed the points that were mentioned in the job description almost point by point by point. Now, normally I would never connect a person with a letter, but she's right here, so I could ask her first. Because all of that is very confidential, but one of the strengths of it, the main strength was that she had exactly what we were looking for, but also she addressed each of those points in a very clear way. So how could we argue with that? We could say, well, yes, and this might be a good match. So it was the perfect application letter.
And some people approach the crowd. I didn't see yours, but some people approach it literally that was structured. I wasn't on the search committee.
We're all in the search committee.
Oh yeah, I wasn't. I wasn't at your talk.
Too much.
I wasn't at your talk. I was the notebook. Where it's actually like the headings of what was in the call. That's not my style, but some people do that where it's like doing that kind of thing.
It was a clear match. Other times you get generic applications like you mentioned. And you can tell the person put no thought into it, probably is sending out 150 applications that remotely apply.
Yeah. And I think it's also important, and a lot of this dovetails with the research statement too, mention future work or what's ongoing. Show them that you have a path. And we'll talk about that when we get to the research statement in just a second. Any questions or letters or concerns about that? Yeah, have people proofread it, read it out loud. It's like a publication you do. It's a pretty important thing. I tended to use the same general content and structure. I had mine kind of set up where I just had to shift a few concepts here and there depending on what the focus of the position was. But things might vary. You see, I summarized my dissertation. Just kind of painful to read now. I won't even try to read my future research because I'm sure that doesn't match up.
Well, but that underscores one rule of thumb. You can describe what you're doing at the time, but it's almost guaranteed to change.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you're locking yourself into a lifetime of one particular research agenda. Chances are it'll change.
And some of that's with job talks too. You should do a workshop on job talks. So that's there's sample there. There's some samples in this Washington thing, and hopefully they say some of the similar things as things I do. I mean, you've all written letters. You know how to kind of do that. And if you want anybody, I'm sure any of us would be happy to look at what you send out. They will be kept. They should be kept confidential. The searches should all be confidential at the institutions, presumably. And even when if you get the job or anything like that, it's not like something becomes open or anything, or references don't see it. Different places vary on whether or not the whole faculty votes, or is it a subcommittee or things like that in terms of who on the faculty might see the file. So you should expect that everyone on that faculty would see your package. Sometimes it's good, especially maybe towards the end of the letters, you tend to see this where you talk more about what you would do there. I look forward to collaborating with so-and-so professor or working with this center and to help sort of again draw that connection between how you fit with them. It's often good to look at the university overall and try to focus on potential collaborations with other units or other research centers, because we often like to hear someone that's hoping to help bridge the gap between us and computer science or something, and you can talk about it. It doesn't mean you have to actually reach out to people or plan collaborations ahead of time. You're just mentioning, and it's showing that you've done your homework by looking at the actual faculty and seeing who fits. So we often get these where they'll mention one of us that they hope to work with or see that they have some kind of fit with. At the same time, you probably want to avoid a place that has someone that does exactly what you do. Or if that is a place you're going to apply to, you need to find a way to differentiate yourself from that person. So I know I've been on a search committee where we had someone who was a pretty good privacy and technology scholar. And it's like, yeah, do we need another one? I think I'm okay here. So it's like those kind of
Started sweating bullets.
Exactly. But you have those things too, where it's like, okay, this person looks really good, but we already have that. So and that's why your work should already be unique, because that's what makes a dissertation. But it's that balance between fitting in but not completely overlapping. If they're looking for someone that specifically does online privacy, and they already have an online privacy scholar there, well then you're fine. Say you do online privacy because that's what they're specifically looking for whatever reason. But you do need to just make sure you're not trying to steal someone else's thunder, because some people take that the wrong way. Most of us are fine about that, but other people might react to that. So that's letters. It's important. Even if increasingly these things are just all submitted via email or web system. You want to convert everything to PDF. You don't want any track changes. You don't want any, versions, in there. I literally got a contract to sign the other day from a hotel for a conference, and they sent it as a Word doc. So I'm like, I'm going in and changing stuff, and sign it and see what they do. So do those kind of things. Make sure you sign it, that kind of stuff. So Larry, you'll spend a lot of time wordsmithing that letter. It'll drive you nuts, because now it's that painful experience of how do I condense everything that I am and I ever want to be and I've done and I'm going to do into this one document. It could be kind of painful and fun at the same time. So you can go through mine. I don't even remember this job I was applying for, but they didn't hire me, and I'm sure it was good. I think I know who they hired, and they made a good choice. So that's the cover letter. I think I covered all my points on there. Then there's the vita. If you haven't already started to assemble a vita, you need to leave this room right now and do it. You need to start assembling what you are and who you are. This is the most important document. This is what, if anybody's going to look at just one thing, it's going to be your Vita. I approach it, and I think a couple of pages into this Washington handout, they talk about CVs. And I think they agree with me to use like white space and stuff. Yeah, 11 or 12 point font, big margins, make good use of white space, don't afraid to be bold, underline, capitalize important information, be consistent with how you format, all that kind of stuff. I don't think I used a good formatting on this one, because I was trying to highlight the years. And this is different than what it might look like when you go up for tenure or other kinds of things, because every institution has their own customized format. But you want to be clear, you want to list everything. I'll say almost everything. We'll come to that in a minute. And this is sort of a general approach. Research interests, if you look at mine, I tended to do that. I don't do that anymore, but it's probably a good idea to list that. You can show some breadth to what you are there. You can do it from a real wide swath and narrow it down to get on the list. I don't know if I have any kind of logic to this ordering. Well, this kind of fits what I am today. Well, that's very nice then. Okay. This was 2007 when this document was put together. I don't like objectives. That's just my pet peeve. My objective to get a tenure track position at a leading research institution. Well, of course it is. That doesn't help at all, in my opinion. If you have objectives on yours, I'm not trying to say you're a bad person. It's just I just always kind of I just don't like those. What do I say on the other page? Like you're not striving for first shift at Dairy Queen. It's like that's not what we're about here. But you want it to be clean. These are always multi-pages, so don't be afraid to add spacing and stuff. To do it, you want to make sure it's readable, that everything is easily discernible. You want to list. You start out with your education. If you don't have your PhD yet, you say expected 2014. That actually reminds me on your letter. If you don't have your PhD yet, very early in your letter, you need to declare when you're expecting it. Probably in that first paragraph. And hopefully you can say, and the defense is scheduled for, because when I'm looking at files, I guess this gets more what Tom's talking about, I want something more than just hopefulness that you're done, and typically even a reference or your chair might get contacted to confirm that a date has been set, because there's always that kind of nervousness about things. So list all your education, whether or not it's relevant today or not. I have a marketing degree, all that kind of stuff. You put it all out there. Any appointments that you've had, if you've had postdocs or the kinds of things, you put them on there. I listed my dissertation and my advisors. I did that largely for the political reasons that you think I would list advisors on there. You want to show who you're working with and who helped shape you, and maybe that'll rub off or impress somebody, and that's just part of this game as well. Later on in your career, you probably drop that from your CV. It's just not as essential. And then you start hitting the big stuff. I would probably have reordered this if I was doing it now to put the publications first instead of the grants and fellowships. I was pretty proud of the grant, but publications should probably come first. I think that's how I described it in my handout. So this is a little bit of self-criticism now. And I break it down based on the type of publications. If you have any peer-reviewed journal articles, you put those up front. That's your bread and butter when you're sending these kind of things out. Any kind of invited book chapter or reviewed book chapter, those kind of things. You do want to list those kind of things in separate categories like I have here to make clear what they are. I didn't use a standard citation method, so when I had something that was co-authored or co-edited, I added it as a parenthetical, which is probably a little disingenuous. So you might want to, I've seen them both ways, where it's listed like this, or it's listed as just a formal APA citation. If you do the formal APA citation, it's not uncommon to like bold your name. So if there's like 3 authors, you bold where you are, just so it stands out. And that's probably a good idea. You don't here have to explain why you were the third author, or even though I'm the third author, I did all the work. That can be for when you have a phone interview or a discussion or a candid thing, you slip that in there. Different disciplines do that differently, you know. And I don't even know what the norm is with LIS because it's not my field.
It doesn't come up too often.
Yeah, like in, you know,
well,
if you're...
for tenure promotion, that might be...
And tenure promotion, it is. But like in computer science, you know, and in sciences, like anything that, like, Nick or Jeremy or anyone who's my student puts out, my name is automatically on it because I'm their advisor. Whether or not I added a period or not, it's just automatic that I'm a co-author. And that's just not how we operate, you know. It's like, but just... You'll see a variety of those kinds of
in tenure and promotion activities, it's more of a, you can write a little sentence explaining what your role was.
Yeah, there's a whole document now where you explain collaboration,
separate
document where you explain collaborations.
Michael, can I jump into you know, just in case, if you want to look better, if you have both peer-reviewed and non-peer-reviewed article, you can combine them together, but use the extra, you know,
you can star them. Yeah.
So then you still see looks 5 or 6 instead of only 1 or 2 or something. So that's another way to do it. Because people sometimes quickly look at the numbers.
And that's how it is actually, and that's more of what you learn.
You don't have to be as honest as Michael anyway.
Like my CV now just has all journal articles listed, and then the ones that were peer reviewed are
okay, so
are
now it's, at least looks...
So now it's a nice big list, yeah.
What about conference proceedings that you're published in? Where would you put those?
Yeah, I typically categorize those separately as proceedings.
Okay.
And then you could even star those as whether or not those were peer reviewed or not. I mean, opinions differ because, you know, and it's, and disciplines differ. You know, again, like in math or computer science, proceedings is the game, you know, to be an ACM or something. I think here, I didn't have any kind of proceedings per se.
No, I didn't see them.
I think with the merit review and tenure format, it's a separate section for conference proceedings. And you would indicate whether or not it was a full paper that was reviewed and included or just an abstract that was in the, and then later, you know, the level of scrutiny that goes into.
But there's no kind of general criterion. Some people, if you look at the CV, they put together some of them separate, so it's again.
Yeah. And why did I do other journal articles on that?
That's why I was wondering.
Oh, that's because that's a law review, and that's a different universe in terms of peer review and those kind of things. Now I actually just include that with my other publications. So edited volumes, it's interesting, I'm chunking things together that now I know I probably shouldn't do. I have on page 3, edited volumes and special issues. Those are 2 separate things. One is a book I edited, and one is a special issue for a journal that I edited. And those should be listed separately, because there's different levels of work and importance to those.
I never worked with Amanda before. You worked with Amanda before?
Yeah. You know Amanda?
Yeah, of course. We came from the same university.
Oh, I didn't know that. I know Devon. Yeah. She's not in academia anymore. Anyway.
So we hired you based on something incorrect?
Yeah, that's not the happen.
That's not the happen.
So you'll see then, you know, book reviews or minor publications if you've done like guest posts on a blog or little articles in like a newsletter or things that aren't scholarly output per se, but still meaningful and relevant. You know, at this point in terms of your CV, you want to put as much on there as you possibly can. You know, so
They're really good Facebook statuses. You're really proud of.
Yeah, a good subreddit that you manage. Yeah. But if you've blogged on a blog or if you've done those kind of guest posts, you put those on there. That's part of being out there. I included the works in progress. If you flip to page 4, mostly because I wanted to show that I had stuff going on. This was during a postdoc when I did this one, so I had the time to be able to get some works in progress, and these are all the things I published my first couple years out. And again, just because you list them here doesn't mean they're going to happen, and I can state that as a fact. But it's showing them that, you know, because when you're, I'm sure Tom will mention this with evaluation, you want to show the faculty that you're going to hit the ground running, you know, and that you're going to make tenure. And then I list all my conference presentations and other invited talks. If you just ask to come give a talk to somebody, but it's not like a formal conference. Yeah.
Am I correct that it's appropriate to custom rearrange on the CV to meet to match the job posting?
Yeah.
Like for teaching focus, you might want to.
Yeah, you might want to foreground that if it's more of a teaching institution. Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And I put, so I have list all kinds of things. Workshops that I've gone to, I thought, and those are important, or if you've been in a doctoral workshop at the I conference or in the LEASE workshop on this, you list all those things. It shows that you've been engaged, that you've been out, you've been doing more than just sitting at your computer with your head down. You want to try to show that you're part of the larger community and that you're out there. So, I had gone to various little workshops or been involved in different kinds of programs, so you list all those if you have that. And then list your service.
Can I ask a question
Yeah,
for you?
yeah.
Would you ever include webinars, like webinar type workshops that were specific to something applicable?
I tend not to. The one place that I think that might fit would be more of like a professional development kind of focus. But I tend to approach these more as something that you were invited to that may not have been public, or at least it was a little bit more focused on a research agenda or something like that. But it depends on the example and the context, of course. But that's how I approach it. And there's ways you could do that. If you went through, 6 webinars on how to use NVivo or something, that can come up. That can be something that you mention in your narrative about your methods. And I use these methods and have been trained by this. Or if you've attended every Privacy Week webinar that the ALA does and you're applying for that kind of job, you find a way to mention that somehow. But I don't know if I would list them separately like that. But service, list every committee that you've been on, ad hoc or not. If you sat in someone's office to brainstorm how to set up a PhD student, publication, you were on the PhD publication working group. There's ways you can.
Yeah, editors, chief editors, all those good things.
Yeah, well,
and also the professional organization.
Oh yeah,
that's another thing very important.
Yeah, but if you were the doc representative on some random committee, you put that in here. It shows again that you're engaged, that you want to show that you're part of a group, and you also, to me, I like seeing the service because it shows a little something about what life is going to be like when you actually go on a faculty, and that these kind of demands are made, and you have that kind of thing. And it's not to say if you don't have service, it's not like you're not going to get hired. Nobody's going to the service page first, to see that. But you do want to show it. So I mentioned, these things, or if you like Nick in Germany have helped with one of these workshops, that service that goes on here, that you've done that, or you run the email list for the research group that you're with. You are the research group assistant, or you're the digital curator for the we don't want to completely make up titles, but you want to somehow convey that you volunteered to do something that took time and energy, and it's in service of someone beyond just yourself. So you put that in there, and then you have professionally. If you're a member of associations, it's always good to list that to show that you've engaged with your community. If you're not a member of an association, go ask Iris for the $40 and join one today. To show that you're in some kind of group, or find one, or make one.
$40.
Yeah.
$40 Chinese dollars.
I would hope that the school would cover that for you. I don't know if we have a policy on that, but I would hope.
But they all have, but they all are rich because they got a publication fee as well.
Yeah, I won't comment on their personal finances, but in my opinion, the school should.
If you publish one article and you can join a couple of organizations.
My media coverage is just my ego, so if you feel like that's important, you can do that. I try to. So I have different
I have a question. Maybe we're almost done, so right. But research experience section.
Yeah.
You put the research assistant,
Yeah.
experience. But this research assistant is different from what our research assistant.
Yeah, these were more project specific, where I was hired to work on a particular project, or there was a grant that a professor had, and I was contracted assistant under the terms of that grant. So yeah, here we have, you might have a different kind of experience where you just provide research support, or you could have done 6 different things, for me or something like that. So that could still be listed in a place like this, where you say I was research assistant for Professor so-and-so, and you could, if you wanted to, even right there list, you don't want to say, and I did 18 EBSCO host searches, but, assisted in, literature review, or if there was, like some of you worked on my Zuckerberg Files project, you'd be dumb not to mention that, right there, right? So, or if there's a paper, contributed to so-and-so's research in this, so you can, you could have some precision there, even though it is set up a little bit differently here. But I know some of the gigs are just, whatever I happen to throw at you this week, it's a whole bunch of random stuff. So then it just might be more of a general statement.
Yeah, but many of you work on actual projects, right? So actually doing a research project, so you can put projects there too.
I forgot about that one. That was interesting. Okay, this is memory lane. I forgot about that one too. So and that's where when I was writing this up, I was trying to highlight. I had a very research focused approach. Another thing that comes out a little bit in my letter and my content was the fellowship that I had didn't allow me to teach. I was actually literally like banned from teaching. So I had to find other opportunities to teach, just volunteering to be an assistant, just so I could sit in a classroom with someone. Yes, I volunteered to be an assistant. I'm going to keep like that. It's a little bit of summer teaching and a few other things. So a lot of my approach to teaching in my content was almost trying to make up for the fact that I'd never taught my own class. Because my fellowship was a research fellowship, not a teaching fellowship, and like I asked to teach, and they said no, you can't. That was a gap in my CV that I had to fill with rhetoric and other kinds of things to help. Rhetoric. Try to show that I could still do it. And apparently I'm a complete failure when it comes to teaching. So. I had another academic experience and professional experience, and this varies. I'm on page 2 of my CV. You worked the hamburger stand at the country club for a summer. That's not really relevant to be on here, but for me, I had a big gap. I had worked in business for 8 years, and I felt like I needed to at least recognize what I was doing during that time, so I kind of put it in just as one big chunk. And then especially if you've done work for like a national grant agency or some other kind of libraries or anything else, it would be good to put that in there. You want to show that you have real world experience that's relevant to what you're doing, so it's good to put it in there. And I put in I think I put in the library especially because I was applying to a library program. So all of a sudden, hey, I was an assistant at a library, just randomly. So. Yeah.
And Shandar, I remember her too. Do you remember her industry working experience? Really
Yes.
helpful for her to be selected as the applicant, from the applicant pool too, because we're looking for people who have some kind of industry experience on the IT.
When we're hiring for the IST program, that's
Right.
definitely
That was a big plus.
to have that you've worked for a company.
Anderson, I think it was.
Yeah.
So it really was nice to see that.
Yeah, we've had people that worked for BlackBerry or something. Apply, but not commonly. So that might vary whether or not that's there. And if I was doing this again, I'd probably put that other experience at the end. But you don't want to leave anything out that is at all relevant to how you be a good faculty member or whatever the job is that you're applying for. Showing that you're well balanced. There's this tension, that you might have because you're so focused on your dissertation. You're so focused on, I'm going to be the best multi-method critical discourse analyst in the universe, But then, occasionally you see a CV and it's like, well, that's all that person did for 4 years, was write their dissertation. And then they gave one talk on it. And it's like, well, how I know you're going to succeed if you come and join the faculty. So, you want to show that kind of breadth of. It's not to say that you should do 8 different things either, but having that kind of balance and showing the balance. That's why doing research experience means you got exposed to some other project or someone else's research, and you now can talk a little bit about it, and you can, how that works or how that operates. So if you're doing things like you're participating in webinars as a speaker, you're doing professional development, you've given a talk at a high school on your topic or at a library conference or those kind of things, you put all that on here that shows outreach. Different schools will think differently about that. If you're applying to a library school, they're going to love that you did all kinds of outreach and community work and that kind of stuff. Other programs might not want that. They want to look at your research. So that's, again, where some of that ordering comes into play as well. But you really just got to kind of lay it all out there and in a way that's clear. So I guess I could have sent around my current CV, but
That's what takes promotion.
yeah.
Wow.
Thursday.
Literally, he's going up on Thursday.
So, other questions on this? I mean, they're long, and it's not that the longer is the better necessarily, but and if you only have 2 pages, you only have 2 pages. That's fine. You talk about what you're doing in your letter. You talk about what you've been working on, what's coming next, what do you want, what's coming down the pipe, which leads us into the research statement if we're willing to move on. Yeah.
Tyler always this question.
Oh yeah.
No, I had a question along the lines of something that might be considered more minor.
Yeah.
So if you were in the student group to decide something what would normally be considered smaller or much more local, would you include that, and then if so, where?
I do. I mean, I would include that as some kind of a service, service to the, and sometimes I think I broke down service like to the profession, like I've reviewed, if you've reviewed for a journal or for a conference, or there's service to the university because you were the student rep on some campus committee, or service to the department that you were the student rep on that. And I would list that in there, that you were, the student liaison, and it could be listed as an ad hoc committee or whatever it might be. I have that. I don't know how I listed it here. Our program, when I was going through my PhD, did a whole restructuring of the funding and of the whole deal. Everything got changed. It was a lovely thing that had happened. And I was the rep, like, with all these faculty members on doing this. I didn't have a vote or anything, but I was just there to kind of have a voice and all that. So it was a random ad hoc committee. We met like twice, but I put it in there. So. To me, that shows that you're engaged beyond just your work. I mean, it's like you need to be really narrow, but it also shows that you're a human and you know how things operate. I mean, and hopefully from these service experiences, you have learned a little something positive or negative about how things operate. There are politics in academia. We didn't recognize that. So with the research statement, not all places require it. I'm going to try to go fast so Tom can go. I have 2 copies in this handout that's behind my letter. And you are going to need to get used to writing a research statement. The one that I have is 3 pages. That's a little on the long side. But it was a struggle for me at the time because I was doing some very unique and very different things, and I had to find a way to communicate this to non-experts in my field to understand why I'm doing this and why it matters. So that longer one is broken into different concepts, different topic areas different themes that I have. And actually a couple of those I highlight in my tenure package right now in terms of this is how I approach my scholarship. These are the main topic areas that I explore in. And it's just to help people go through, and at the end they talk about methods. It's important to talk about methods, what you're skilled in or not. You need to justify your method or explain your method. I was kind of A methods, so I had to come up with some methods and do that. But that's what I do here. So it's just a couple of paragraphs about the core thrust of my research. I'm not citing anybody. I mention names, but I'm not citing with a bibliography. I don't think you should do that. This is kind of wordy, but it's also trying to recognize that it's going to be like I imagine like our faculty. If you are applying to a job in our faculty, you have historians, you have ethicists, you have policy people, you have people like Dietmar, you have people like Iris. You have all these different factions that speak some very different languages and use some very different methods and care about different things at the level of specificity. So being able to talk to those kind of people, that's more important even with your job talk than with this. But so if you're doing information retrieval and your work is building a really good algorithm to do something, I get that, but that's not my area. But you need to convince me of what you're doing is worthwhile research and important. And I'm not going to read your dissertation, to do that. And I may not even read your writing sample if we ask for one. So make sure you have that stuff in here too. So it's just a reality. I'm sorry, but it's just.
Michael, can I add something too? If you have multiple areas in your research, potentially because you have worked with different faculty as well, one thing you need to do is see a coherent research agenda.
Yeah.
That's always important too.
Yeah.
So you're not doing something here, something there. You can put them together under one C. So that's something you want to put them together so they know you know what you're doing there. So look at the connection. For the tenure, of course, that's also
Tenure is very
important
important.
too.
Yeah.
One thing you can, I think for job it might be too much, but for tenure it's always good to also have some kind of chart or figure to put all those things together.
You were the second person to mention that to me after I submitted mine. I know, you're on sabbatical. So. But no, especially if you have multiple threads, of what
Especially
you're
when
doing.
you mentioned,
with
you have to
somebody.
let people who are not in your area to understand it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
important too.
So that's a longer version, and you can go through that. I look at it now. This is too much text. It gives people though a high level look of what I'm doing, and if you care a lot about access to knowledge, okay, I'll go look and see what he's doing there. I was also trying to take a whole bunch of different things I'm doing. I was trying to tie my Yale postdoc into it because that's something I want to constantly remind people about. And that's part of leveraging for jobs. So doing those kind of things. Behind that is a little bit of a shorter version, which is a little bit more project-based, where I have this overarching summary of what I do, then I talk about my dissertation, then I talk about a couple other small things I've done, and then I talk about my future research. So that's a little bit more coherent, a little bit more compact. That could be a good approach too, as opposed to just here's these 5 things that I happen to be juggling in my scholarship. It's important on these research statements or in your letter again to talk about future work. Where do you see this going? Anything that was a limitation in your dissertation is now future research, right? This is where I'm going, or I hope to go in this direction, or I studied this over here, but now I'm going to take that and apply it over here, and that's what I'm going to do next. You don't have to say that I'm already 30% done or anything like that, but it's just, again, showing them that you have a research agenda. So that's an important thing, and I'll finish so then Tom can go. And then the teaching statement, I struggle with. I don't like teaching statements. I don't think we asked for teaching statements, do we? We did?
Some
It's like
people
teaching
do.
philosophy, something
Teaching
like
philosophy.
that.
Yeah.
What's a teaching philosophy?
Sometimes they do.
I mean, that's my, it's like teaching philosophy. What are you looking for on that? That they don't say, I will hit the kids if they get it wrong or something. So I wrote a teaching philosophy. I didn't like writing it, but yeah.
So is teaching statement and teaching philosophy different?
They're used kind of interchangeably. Sometimes if it just says teaching statement, you could get away with just like, here's what I've taught and here's how I approached it. But hopefully within that, you're communicating some kind of pedagogical philosophy that, I fostered discussions, or I created, multimedia ways of engaging with learners, or I
Promoting interaction.
Yeah. You could even mention things you struggled with, or things that might have been unique with the environment. It was an online course, and it was the first time it was taught, or my first time teaching was a complete fit. Well, I say complete fit. Was challenging for these reasons. It's like
Challenge, I love that. Challenging things.
But a lot of people talk about, like they go and read a bunch of Dewey and they come up with this big, broad teaching philosophy, which to me it's kind of like your objective. I want to get a job. I have a teaching philosophy. I want to help people learn. So and I don't mean to down talk teaching philosophy because I took a class in the philosophy of education, all that kind of stuff. I get it, but you'll probably have to come up with a couple of paragraphs like I did to discuss how you approach teaching. And hopefully you approach it through engagement and critical thinking and interactive learning. And you're not just going to say, I stand up and lecture, even though that's what I do half of the time. So you're going to need to do that. And then I did summarize, as you see, I summarized my teaching, and largely because I felt deficient in my teaching, so I wanted to add a little bit extra beef into what I was doing. So if you've designed the class, you've got to mention if you've designed your own class. Mm-hmm. You have to highlight if you've taught your own class, because that's not. I mean, it's common, but it's not everybody does that, and it's important for you to say if you've had that responsibility. That's a lot of responsibility, and that you can pull it off. You can talk about how many students. I mean, some people get really detailed. This number of students online, off-site, and my evaluation was 4.6 out of 5 or something. You don't have to get into that. They might ask for evidence of teaching effectiveness. If they say that in a job app, then you do need to provide those statistics. And I don't know how people do that, if they give you a copy of the whole thing, or they just provide the stats and you just trust the person that they were in there. Like with tenure, you provide copies of everything and evaluations and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, why we don't get online? Why we only have one copy, hard copy of it? I was asked.
You just have to scan it. You just have to scan it. Yeah.
But it doesn't want to do it professionally.
I know.
Looks
Yeah.
like I made
But
it.
that's
You can make it better.
yeah, exactly. If you're making it up, it would look really good. Yeah. So, but and again, it depends on the school and the program on how much they'll focus on the teaching side of it.
But if you don't want to put it in your statement, it's useful to have gone through the experience of drafting something so that when you're asked in person, let's say you go in an interview and they say, well, what is your teaching philosophy? Or how do you approach teaching? You'll have some points in your memory to move to so you can give an intelligent answer.
Anything else that I'm sorry, I just keep going on with all this. References, if they ask for references, provide them. Make sure you ask the people to do that.
A reminder, too.
And it's typically your chair, probably one other person from your home institution, and then probably one person outside would be a good idea. If they ask for 3, find someone else in the field that can talk to your work. Yeah.
What's your opinion of the statement references available upon request?
Oh,
Ask for it.
see,
I know they're varying opinions.
I usually keep it out because anything is available upon request. It's just how I kind of approach it. So.
Well, and some institutions require that you supply a certain number, and that could be even a feature built into their evaluation grid. They can say, are the 3 references present? And if not, then the application isn't complete.
Some might ask for actual letters.
Some might ask
Either
just
sent
names,
separately or with you. Try to do them just separately, and then if you ask me or anybody else to do it, keep on me, because it's not that I forget, I'm just busy. So don't let your references slide, because you could be
That's why I said send a reminder.
you could be kicked out of a stack because your references aren't there. So harass me if I'm supposed to write you a letter.
My impression for faculty jobs is that the letters aren't required in advance.
Usually not. Yeah.
It's only those people who reach a certain level would have their references checked.
And often for outside people, I mean, the way I approached it, I had someone who wasn't on my committee, but I had been in touch with a lot. I actually sent him chapters. He knew my work very well, and was a good name to have as an outside reference, and so he agreed to do it. So there is performative political aspects of references, like anything else. But hopefully your chair will give you a good reference, and they should be first on your list.
So with outside, you're referring to someone outside the institution, not necessarily.
Generally, yeah. I mean, the way I approach it is, well, it depends on your area. Because I would be looking for someone else in your field, but not invested in your success, because I want you to get a really good job, because that helps us look good. But that outside person could care less in that regard. They're not self-served by you getting a good job. And again, just shows that there's some external legitimacy to what you're doing. And so, and if you don't have someone in mind, then you should start fostering those relationships or working with your advisor to help identify somebody that might be a good outside reference. Some places only ask for 2, and then I think 2 internal is probably okay.
That's where some networking at conferences can come in handy.
Yeah.
Let's say that you're introduced to some other specialists in your field, and then it would be good to cultivate those relationships and say, oh, by the way, I'm having trouble with my methodology or have a question.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I send you a copy? And then
Yeah.
they graciously say yes, of course, and then the relationship is more.
Yeah, hopefully it's not someone you're like eviscerating in your dissertation or something. But
So one more. What about name dropping? My instinct tells me not to do it. Not like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, hey, I know so and so, but like I worked with so and so, or this person's on my committee. If there's like a relationship with the job that you're applying for, I just don't know if that's.
I think that's valuable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You don't want to just mention like the one time I had coffee with so and so, But no, if you've worked with them or if you've doing
I
that.
just think there's a risk if there's like you think just because there's a relationship doesn't mean it's a good relationship.
Well, true. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, yeah.
So don't just drop one name, drop multiple names.
Yeah.
One of them works.
Yeah, I mean that's that fine line between bragging and
Yeah.
being a jerk about it. But yeah, I guess I didn't name drop as much as I probably could have. Yeah, you don't want to be that person. Yeah, yeah. But a lot of those things work out in that networking environment, and like when you're on the market, you might be more inclined to go to conferences just to shake hands and make yourself visible. Not even specific to like that job, but and you start making those connections and making yourself memorable for good reasons and those kind of things. So I think the other thing I ended with was, and I guess most things are online now. When I did it, I printed it on, watermark paper and had a big fancy blue folder that they all went into, and they all got mailed in flat, 2-day mail envelopes. And I think now it's the internet. So,
well, even at that time, the search committee didn't see it that way.
no, exactly.
Yeah.
It gets pulled out by someone
Yeah.
in the front office and photocopied 10
Photocopied,
times. And so that
Or
was
scanned.
$100 gone. So, like, do they still make you write do the dissertation?
I don't think
No, not anymore.
electronic submission.
Oh my God, yeah. I was thinking you had to make sure the watermark was lined up the right way. Yeah. 3 copies of it too on that stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let Tom pick up on any of that. So.
Well, it was very nice to hear the ways you managed to lead us along.
Pull one over.
Pull one over on this.
And I'll let you highlight the ending part.
Yeah.
Well, over the years I've been here, I've done a lot of different kinds of searches. And, there's another one. We'll take half and there's some that are stable too. Yeah, so they're already sorted.
While you're passing those out, also I've noticed that even like on my invited talks, like if you get a talk internally for the PhD program for the grant, that goes on here. That's a talk. The presentation you gave in seminar class is not a talk, but you're standing up here with the camera. Even if it's internal stuff, you put it on.
All right, first of all, if you are a guy, you have to get a coat that has patches on the elbow, okay? It's part of the uniform, Anyway, what I did here was I requested from our HR person some materials, some position descriptions and grids that are used for evaluation, so you can see what goes on the institutional side of this process. As you picked up from what Michael said, there are a lot of networks throughout academia. A lot of people have formal and informal networks, so you get to know people even in other states or other countries who are working on PhDs and someone who might be future applicants. But it's interesting to see how those two worlds come together at job hunting time, and there are different forces on the student side and different forces on the academic side, and it's sometimes entertaining to see how they come together. And we hope fruitful. What I did on the first page was outline, and by the way, this is an unofficial outline. We could probably use a document like this, but we don't have one. But it's the start anyway. This is the outlining of the recruiting process for SOAS. Are there extra copies?
There's one.
First of all, we have to figure out why we need a job to be filled, if we need a job to be filled. And from that moment, you can see differences across this campus and between our school and similar schools. There are just different processes that are involved. We have some fortune in being very self-sufficient, and if we determine that we need someone, we can probably hire that person. Other smaller units or units that are part of larger, that are departments within schools, they sometimes are limited in terms of funding because they can't just hire someone when they want. They have to bid for faculty positions. So we're lucky enough to have a school that is self-standing. It has its own dean. We have our own ability to move quickly, well, relatively quickly, if we want to. So that's nice. But there still is a pretty detailed process. We have a committee, an academic planning committee, ABC it's known as, and that is a group that meets monthly to determine what new programs or what new faculty or instructor lines we should fill. And you can probably read between the lines here. If that committee meets once a month and other committees meet once a month, sometimes the process for getting something approved that requires several committees can take forever. So once in a while, it all lines up very, very beautifully. Like it did with Shauna's search. That one happened to line up very well, so we were able to progress quickly. We just hired a teaching academic staff person at the beginning of this year. That one went amazingly fast. So if everything is lined up, it works well. The first step in our school is identifying from the institutional level whether we need a certain kind of position. And if so, well, whether we need a position, and if so, what kind? Should it be a faculty position? Should it be one that involves research, or is it primarily instruction? And dealing with those kinds of questions, because there are financial implications behind that as well. Then it moves, in our case, to the executive committee. The executive committee sometimes takes advantage of existing position descriptions or other sources of information, drafting, and at least getting the start of a position description, and it delegates the responsibility from the executive committee to an ad hoc committee appointed for that search. So it is ultimately the responsibility of the EC to do all of that, but it assigns that work to a subcommittee or an ad hoc committee, actually, that consists of relevant people, usually some faculty, potentially a teaching academic staff member or two, and other staff if appropriate. Then the search and screen committee meets, more or less gets their charge. When you form a search committee, there may be a member or two who haven't been through a search before, so they need to be brought on board about things like privacy, procedure, and things like that, and understand the timeline. Sometimes, we haven't had it too often here, but in some situations it's useful to have someone from HR or from the legal department to come to explain how those kinds of things work, just so you can follow the rules so you're not surprised later. Then as another recruitment take place, the search and screen committee might be called on to help figure out what the best modes of advertising might be. I mean, are these specialized resources that apply mainly to faculty members? Is it a broader kind of search? For the teaching academic staff position we recently hired, we treated it more as a local search, and we ended up with some highly qualified, relatively local applicants. It was a smaller applicant pool. The year before, we had a similar search, and it attracted maybe 45 people from all over the country and a couple of other countries. So the way you market can result in pretty different sets of applications. Then, once the deadline is passed, the search and screen committee meets to review the applications, And there are a couple of ways to filter. Most job ads or most position descriptions have some very basic requirements that absolutely have to be in place. For most faculty jobs, one of them is a PhD. So that would be that would be one of the required elements of a position description. And if that isn't there or almost there, then that application wouldn't be able to be considered. So it's that simple. It is a way of weeding. So if you are a couple or 3 years away from getting your PhD, it isn't wise to start applying at that point. Although if you are close, if you can, as Michael said, if you can say, I'm defending on May the 9th, then please, I mean, that would be within the realm of possibility, and it would be reasonable to do that. Surprises can happen. There's one case that SOAS went through quite a few years ago. This is before my time, but it was well enough known that it still, and it caused the school pain, so that it changed the way it worked. There was a faculty member who was hired, this is back in the late 80s, and I don't know her name. I was told her name, but I've forgotten it, which is just as well. I wouldn't tell you anyway. But she said that she was almost done with her dissertation, and so she started working and had a pretty busy schedule. At that time, we were a smaller school, so everyone had to do a huge amount of work. We had a higher teaching level, and still were expected to publish and so on. So she started doing that. By the end of the first year, she wasn't done. So she said, but I'm still almost done. Anyway, this continued for about 3 years. So what happened was, one day she came to the person who was dean at that time and said, I have good news, I'm finished. So of course everyone was happy with that. They had a little reception or something. And then a few months later, I don't remember the time range exactly, months later, the dean was at a conference and congratulated the faculty member's dissertation chair on her being done. And he said, it was so nice that she was able to finish her dissertation. And then her chair said, well, she didn't finish.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was bad news. Yeah. So anyway, she didn't continue to work at the university. She had to go. So that was so if you are really close, then it's okay to say that. But
now because you can't even be appointed on faculty if you don't have.
Well, yeah.
The PhD.
There's
at the time you must not have paid much attention.
Yeah.
You couldn't be technically a faculty member.
And that might have been the case officially. She might have been appointed as a lecturer.
Yeah.
And that's what we currently do. And we've had situations in the past where a person wasn't finished. They would be appointed at the lecturer level, and then their tenure clock would begin once they actually have the PhD in hand. So that's a possibility too. But both parties would have to understand how that would work, and if there's a time limit on that. We're willing to do this for a year or for one semester. We have a master's grad from this school who went on to get entered a PhD program at another university, and she took a teaching job way too early and was overwhelmed with work at the job at one school, and then was burning out. She didn't finish her dissertation, and then she went to another university, didn't finish her dissertation there either, and then finally went back to the town where her university was and managed a couple of years after that to finally finish the dissertation. So she just accepted a job now, so she'll be starting in the fall. So don't do that.
Tom, just a time limit to when it's supposed to end.
I just noticed. So anyway,
That's my fault.
that's all right. That's all right. So the second filter is by preferred criteria. Then there may be there may be some semifinalists interviewed by phone or by Skype, and then the finalists would come to campus. The intervening stage might disappear if there aren't sufficient numbers. Now the next pages, there are a couple that are printout. These were supplied to me by our HR person from another department. But you can get a sense about the way a formal internal job description looks. This isn't the way it looks in the ad, but you can see aspects of it that would be reproduced in an ad. But there's an overall description, basic summary. Minimum qualifications are described in some detail. Preferred qualifications not listed in this particular one. They're listed in the next. Posting date and so on. so you get an idea of how that looks on the inside. There's a corresponding screening matrix. This is the one that fits on one page. You can see that there's room for, this is what the search committee would use. There's a place where the name would appear. Then there are 3 required criteria that are listed. PhD or ABD in economics or related field, research interest in labor economics, willingness to teach in professionally oriented programming. So you can see those all have to be present, or else the application wouldn't be considered anymore.
And those are usually things that come right out of the job posting, which is why it's important for you to address what the job posting asks for in the letter, so then the committee can say, yes, this person is willing to teach in labor economics, because your letter said, I look forward to teaching in labor economics.
Yeah, that's why Shauna's was so nice. She made it very easy for us. Thank you. And then documents. In this case, we don't do this in our screening documents, but this department does have required documents. A CV and cover letter, it's usually pretty obvious anyway. Research papers, and then 3 recommendation letters. So they require the actual letters in that case. The next one is a neuroscience faculty job. The main difference here is that it includes preferred qualifications. These appear also on the grid. I pulled those 2 together onto the last page, so you see the required qualifications and the preferred qualifications. All of the required ones have to be there. The preferred ones you can rank. There's a pretty simple system of ranking, but it's usually enough to distinguish a leading group from a medium group from the trailers or people who really aren't competitive. So now the task, though, is to structure these and describe them in a way that really suits the need of your search, so that you can evaluate them and get exactly the kind of person you want. It's been frustrating in the past, and this happens naturally, where you might identify several areas of expertise, and some of them are covered, some of them aren't, and it turns out once you get the applications that you really have a mix that on paper is okay, but in real life isn't quite right. So you have to, that improves your ability to draft preferred qualifications next time you do a job search. So it's a good process to go through. I would recommend that, if possible, some of you volunteer for search committees that are coming up. The APC will be meeting on Friday and talking about new, I think maybe 2, maybe 3 new positions of faculty and 2 teaching academic staff. If a doctoral student would want to be on on those committees, that would be very possible. So if you have an interest in that, it can be a good experience to go through.
And with that matrix, we tend to just, each committee member creates their numbers, we sum it up, the chair sums it all up, and we don't just draw a line then and move on, but usually there's some kind of breakdown on who scored drawing, who didn't. We talk about differences, and we kind of come to the collective agreement on who to talk to further. But
But you're right, because you don't know the actual matrix, but however, you can extract those matrices from the job description. That's what you can do, see how high your points is. We did the points last time. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we did, and that worked out. That worked out very well. Right. It settled naturally. It's nice when that happens.
Yeah, basically the important part is the research area they're looking for there, and also whether you have the teaching experience or not, both on-site and online.
Yeah, and in our description, we do mention on-site and online. So if you should try to address those. The ones that do address whether they've had online experience.
Well, addable points.
Yeah, it can really make a big difference. Right. So whatever you see in those job descriptions is there for a purpose. So try to respond to everything in those ads.
Our finalist visits, to me, were just kind of light. From my experience, this was the easiest visit in terms of the things you had to do and the stress involved with it. And so that can vary drastically depending on places you go. I've had one where it was, instead of just meeting with faculty in the room, it was all day long, 30 minutes with a faculty member at a time. And so your throat's gone, you're just tired of describing your dissertation over and over again, and it's just grueling like that, plus every meal you're on, and, you just, it's nice when someone takes you out to dinner and they say, let's just talk about, something else, and to give you a chance just to have some downtime. But even that's probably a test.
And the meals are important. I mean, they're nice usually, but you can get some good information. Yeah. We had one luncheon in which a candidate who was otherwise promising did a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde transformation and turned into this very evil person we wouldn't want at lunch. Everyone noticed this transformation between the morning and the afternoon. It took place during lunch. We still don't know what happened.
That's a problem with mine.
Yeah. Maybe that was it. Yeah. So are there any questions?
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
sure.
So I know the interview process, is several. We have phone interviews, Skype interview, and then binary interview. But maybe like during the, also there is a LS conference, so
Yeah.
you had an interview and you had, had an hour interview and you discussed everything about your publication, research and teaching. And they offer the Skype interview. What are they going to ask? They already know about every, research and teaching experience. So, what is, the possible interview questions for the, second interview and the binary
So
interview?
sometimes I think it might be where my letter is kind of generic for every position, and now the Skype interview is a chance for me to talk specifically about how I fit with this, or what classes are you going to teach, or that. And it gets a little bit more to show how much you can sell me on how you fit with us, as opposed to just, yes, you're a good-looking person here, but how are we going to get along?
Yeah, there's some general questions specific the general question about the research you're teaching. Also, they look at CV, there's something specific they want to ask you, you teach that course. How do you do it? What do you see the difference? Depends on. They're both general.
Some of it is just to gauge interpersonal skills, and these people look similar, let's talk to them. And I've had that where it was a phone interview, it was for a postdoc position, and I swear to God, I woke the guy up and was not prepared for any question, he was the leading candidate, and after we had that phone interview, it's like, not a chance, and so some of it is just to get that kind of, something maybe will help differentiate you, because you might, so just, make sure it's on your calendar, you have some notes written down, and
They have a class.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
so